You don't deserve anything, you were just the stepdaughter. Have you ever been told your whole life didn't count just because you weren't really family? That's how it started for me. My name is Danielle, I'm 32 years old, and I live in Louisiana. And this is the story of how my father's death didn't just break my heart, it lit a fire in me that I never knew I had. I grew up thinking I was part of a blended, loving family. My dad married my stepmom Claire when I was 7. She had 2 kids from a previous marriage, Todd and Miranda. I called her Mom. I shared everything with them: birthdays, Christmas, even the messy teenage years. But looking back now, I see the signs were always there. I just didn't want to believe them. When my dad got sick, I was the one who moved in to take care of him. Every appointment, every late-night emergency, every hard conversation about treatment. Claire and the others, they checked in through group texts, maybe dropped by once or twice a month, but I wasn't keeping score. I didn't think I had to. Then my father passed, and everything I thought I knew shattered. After the funeral, I was numb. Grief is a strange thing. It makes you forget how to breathe. But that numbness turned to confusion when I asked Claire about the will, and she said flat out, "Don't worry about it. It doesn't concern you." Didn't concern me? And I didn't press her at first. I told myself maybe it was the grief talking. Maybe we'd all sit down soon and go through the estate together. But the meeting never came. What came instead was a for sale sign in front of my dad's house, and a call from a lawyer I'd never met. That's when I found out. My name wasn't in the will, not once. Not for the house, not for his savings, not for the fishing boat he promised me when I was 16. Nothing. The lawyer told me matter-of-factly. Everything was left to Claire, Todd, and Miranda. Your father made those updates about 6 months before he passed. I felt like I'd been erased. I tried to call Claire, no answer. I texted Miranda, left voicemails for Todd. Nothing. I finally drove to the house, the one I cared for during my dad's final days. And Claire opened the door just wide enough to say, "He wanted to take care of his real family, Danielle. You were just a phase." And then she closed it. I remember standing on that porch, the Louisiana heat pressing in like a weight, thinking, I gave everything for that man, and they gave me nothing. But I wasn't going to stay silent. I wasn't going to let it go, like everyone told me. No. If they wanted fire, I'd let it burn. I wasn't just cut out, I was rewritten. What if the life you lived was erased by a single piece of paper? I couldn't sleep for days after Claire shut the door in my face. I kept replaying everything. Dad and I fixing the dock behind the house, him telling me I was his rock, even during the worst of his illness. He would never do this, never cut me out. Unless he didn't know what he was signing. Something didn't sit right. My dad was sharp, even on his worst days. So how did a will signed 6 months before he passed not include anything for me, not even a mention? I decided to look into it. First, I went to the lawyer who called me. His name was Philip, and while he acted professional, I could tell he was guarded, almost rehearsed. I asked him plainly, "Did my father walk into your office on his own?" He blinked, hesitated, then said, "He was accompanied by his wife, Claire." I asked to see the will. He refused. Said I wasn't a named beneficiary, so I wasn't entitled to a copy. But what he did say, almost like a slip, was that there were no handwritten notes or letters attached. That hit me like a punch to the chest, because I knew my dad wrote one. I'd seen him working on it. A letter, long, detailed, addressed to me. He was always old school like that. He believed in writing things out, in his own words. And now it was gone. That's when the suspicion turned into certainty. Claire didn't just cut me out, she made sure I was never in. She rewrote the ending. And I had to find proof. I drove 2 hours to visit my dad's best friend, Ronnie. They'd served in the Navy together, and Ronnie had always called me his honorary niece. I sat at his kitchen table, eyes full of tears, and asked him, "Do you remember Dad saying anything about his will? About me?" Ronnie didn't hesitate. "Hell yes, he did. Said he wanted to make sure you got the house, the boat, and a good chunk of the savings so you could finally open that catering business you dreamed about. Said you'd earned it." I felt something rise in me, grief mixed with fire. Then Ronnie pulled something out of an old folder. A copy of the original will. Signed, dated, from over a year ago. And I was in it. Not just a footnote, the primary beneficiary. Claire had overridden it all. That's when I knew. This wasn't just grief. This was war. Have you ever felt completely betrayed by family? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're with me so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more real-life family stories. The truth was hidden in plain sight. What would you do if you found proof, but no one wanted you to have it? After Ronnie handed me that old copy of the will, my hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold it. My name, my inheritance, everything Dad promised. It was all right there. And Claire had buried it. The rage that built inside me wasn't loud. It was cold, focused. I knew I couldn't just accuse her without more. She'd deny it, twist it, make me look like the bitter stepdaughter trying to start drama. I needed something they couldn't ignore. Something that would burn through her lies. I decided to start with the basics. If Claire had gotten Dad to sign a new will, there had to be paperwork, emails, appointments, witnesses. And maybe mistakes. I spent the next few days practically living at the parish records office and courthouse. Every document was a brick wall, not available to you, confidential, only for named heirs. It felt like the system was built to protect people like Claire, not someone like me. But then, one night, after hours of searching online, I found it. Buried in the public notices section of an old parish newspaper. Notice of will filing Joseph L. Martin. My dad. And the notice listed Philip's office, the lawyer I had spoken to, as the official recorder. It also listed the date the will was signed, 6 months before Dad died. But the real kicker? The witnesses. 2 signatures I didn't recognize. One was Claire's cousin, and the other was someone listed as office staff. That's not just shady. It's illegal in Louisiana, if the witnesses are biased or have an interest in the estate. I called a friend of mine, Kim, who worked as a legal assistant. When I explained everything, she sucked in a sharp breath. "Danielle," she said, "if you can prove undue influence, forgery, or even procedural fraud, you can contest the will, and maybe—" I didn't even realize I was crying until she said it. Win. I had a shot. But it would mean more than just paperwork. It would mean dragging my family through court. Publicly. Messily. It would mean ripping open wounds that might never heal. For a split second, I thought about letting it go. About taking my broken heart and walking away quietly. But then I pictured Claire standing in my father's house. Selling off the memories. Erasing me like I never mattered. And I knew. I wasn't letting it go. I was letting it burn. She threatened me. And that was her mistake. What if the person who betrayed you tried to scare you into silence? Once I had that copy of the original will and the names of Claire's shady witnesses, I knew what I had to do. I filed a formal petition to contest the will. The day I walked into that courthouse, it felt like every step echoed through my chest. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for my place in my father's life. For the truth. For my dignity. My hands trembled as I handed the paperwork to the clerk. She glanced up and said, "It's about time someone challenged that woman. You're not the first to ask questions." That stopped me cold. "Someone else tried to contest the will?" I asked. She leaned in and whispered, "I probably shouldn't say, but yes. A family friend filed an inquiry a few months back, but dropped it suddenly. No explanation. I felt a chill run through me. What kind of power did Claire have to make people back off? That question was answered a few days later. I got a call from an unlisted number. It was Claire. "You're making a mistake, Danielle," she said. Her voice was calm, too calm. "This will tear the family apart. You think anyone will stand by you when this gets ugly?" I told her, "It's already ugly." Then she'd drop the act. "You want to know what I think? You were always just the helper, the fill-in. Not blood, not chosen. You were convenient. And now you're a problem. Problems get handled." And she hung up. Handled? It sounded like a threat. And it was. The next morning, someone slashed the tires on my car. All four. No cameras, no witnesses, just a message. Stay down. But I didn't stay down. I called Kim and we filed for a court injunction to freeze the estate, temporarily stopping Claire from selling the house or moving any assets. The judge granted it, pending a full hearing. That same day, I served Claire the notice personally. She looked at the envelope, smirked, and said, "You think this is going to bring him back? Pathetic." I locked eyes with her and said, "No. But it's going to bring everything you've done into the light." She didn't smile after that. If you've ever had to stand up against someone who tried to silence you, share your story in the comments. You never know who needs to hear it. And if you're with me so far, like this video and hit subscribe. There's more coming. He left me nothing, except the one thing she couldn't touch. What if the person you lost left behind a truth too powerful to bury? After filing the injunction, I expected Claire to lash out. She didn't, not openly anyway. Instead, she went quiet, which honestly was worse. Because silence from Claire meant scheming, but I stayed focused. I started preparing for the court hearing with Kim's help. We collected statements, tracked down the 2 witnesses listed on the updated will, and began pulling financial records. One of the witnesses, the so-called office staff, had already moved out of state. The other? Claire's cousin, who refused to talk. That wasn't a coincidence. But what came next wasn't something I expected. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a woman named Sherry, Dad's old secretary from his construction company. She said, "I heard what happened, and I think I have something you need to see." We met at a quiet diner off a back road in Tangipahoa Parish. She slid an envelope across the table. "Your dad gave this to me about a year before he passed. Told me not to give it to anyone unless something felt off after he was gone." Inside were 2 things. A handwritten letter. A flash drive. The letter was pure Dad. Messy handwriting, bad spelling, but the words, they shattered me. "If you're reading this, Danny, something's gone wrong. I updated my will with you in mind. You earned it. You were there when no one else was. If they try to change that, know this, I trust you to fight. I left something behind that'll back you up. It's on that drive. You'll know what to do." My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. When I got home, I plugged the drive into my laptop. There were 3 files, 2 PDFs of his earlier will drafts, and 1 video file. It was dated 6 weeks before the new will was supposedly signed. I pressed play. There was my father, sitting at the kitchen table, pale but clear-headed. He looked straight into the camera and said, "I've made my final decisions. I want Danielle to have the house, the business assets, and my personal savings. Claire and the kids, they'll be fine without it. Danielle took care of me. She's earned this. And if anyone says otherwise after I'm gone, show them this." That video changed everything. Claire had the paper, but I had his voice. And that's something she could never erase. I played the video and the room went silent. Have you ever dropped the truth so loud it shut everyone up? The day of the preliminary hearing finally came. I sat on the plaintiff's side of the courtroom, palms sweaty, heart pounding. Claire walked in wearing pearls and her favorite mourning widow look. Cool, composed, smug. She wasn't alone. Todd and Miranda sat behind her, arms crossed like they'd already won. I didn't care. I had the flash drive. I had my dad. The judge called for opening statements. Claire's lawyer went first, slick, polished, dismissive. He painted me as an emotional stepdaughter grasping at things she was never promised. Said the new will was legally sound and witnessed by two unrelated individuals. That last part was a lie. We'd found out the second witness, the office staffer, was actually Todd's friend from college. Biased. Kim stood next, calm, factual, but fierce. She laid out the timeline, the old will, the suspicious change, the questionable witnesses, and then she hit them with it. Your Honor, the plaintiff has newly obtained video evidence, recorded by the deceased himself, stating his true intentions, directly contradicting the most recent will. Claire's lawyer objected. Irrelevant, we have the final signed document. Video testimony is hearsay. But the judge allowed it for review, and I watched as my father's face filled the courtroom screen. He looked frail but resolute. I want Danielle to have the house, the business assets, and my personal savings. Claire and the others? They'll be fine. She earned this. No one said a word. Not Claire, not Todd, not even Miranda. The silence was heavy, like a wall crashing down. But the victory was short-lived. Claire's lawyer stood and calmly said, if we're presenting new material, we have some of our own. He handed the judge a folder. Inside? Alleged emails between my dad and Claire, confirming the new will and accusing me of pressuring him for property during his illness. I froze. The judge looked at me. Did you ever discuss inheritance with your father during his final months? I stood, my voice shook, but I kept it together. No, never. I didn't even know what he had, I just wanted him to live. They were trying to spin it, paint me as manipulative, flip the narrative. The judge didn't rule that day. He called for a continuation and ordered a digital forensics review on all materials, including the emails. We left the courtroom in limbo. Outside, Claire passed me in the hallway. She leaned in and whispered, "You shoulda just let it go." I turned to her, stared her dead in the eyes, and said, "You made the mistake of thinking I'd break. I don't break. I burn. Have you ever been gaslit by someone who tried to rewrite your reality? Drop your story in the comments. And if this moment gave you chills, smash that like button and subscribe. You won't believe what's coming next." She fabricated emails, but she didn't do it alone. What if the lies you were fighting came from someone you trusted? The week after court felt like walking on broken glass. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I just kept waiting for the forensic results, for the judge's call, for the next punch from Claire. And when the call came, it knocked the air out of me. Kim called first. "Danielle, you need to sit down." The digital forensic team had finished reviewing the emails Claire submitted. Turns out, they weren't just misleading. They were forged, entirely fabricated. The timestamps were manipulated, the server headers didn't match my dad's real email domain, and worst of all, the documents were created 2 months after my dad had already passed away. Dead men don't write emails. It was the smoking gun. But the part that really broke me, the person who created those files wasn't Claire. It was Miranda. Her IP address, her laptop, her name in the metadata. Claire may have orchestrated this, but Miranda carried it out. The same girl who used to braid my hair and call me her bonus sister? I had given her the benefit of the doubt for too long. She wasn't protecting her mother. She was protecting the money. The court moved quickly after that. Claire and Miranda were both subpoenaed. Their lawyer tried to delay the hearing, citing emotional distress, but the judge wasn't having it. He ordered them to turn over all relevant devices for forensic inspection. That's when Claire cracked. She filed a petition to settle. She offered me a portion of the estate in exchange for dropping the case and signing an NDA. It wasn't even half of what my dad originally intended for me. It was hush money. I could have taken it, walked away, cashed the check, started fresh. But I didn't come this far for scraps. I looked at Kim and said, I want the ruling, I want the truth, and I want it public. We rejected the offer. That night, Miranda sent me a message. One line, "You ruined everything." I stared at it for a long time. And then I typed back, "You did that the moment you erased me. I didn't ruin the family. They did, when they chose greed over blood, when they chose silence over justice, when they chose to cut me out of the will and rewrite history. Now it was time to write the truth back in. They told me to let it go, so I let it burn." Have you ever looked someone in the eye and realized they finally knew they lost? The day of the final hearing, the courtroom felt different. Still tense, but this time the tension wasn't mine to carry. Claire sat in the front, her lawyer tight-lipped, eyes avoiding mine. Miranda wouldn't even look up. For once, they weren't in control. The judge laid everything out piece by piece. The forensic proof that the emails were forged, the inconsistencies in witness testimony, the video of my father's final words, and most damning of all, a record of Miranda's login trail during the forgery process. Claire's team didn't even try to deny it anymore. They pivoted to damage control, blamed stress, claimed confusion, said my father changed his mind before the end. But the judge wasn't moved. His ruling was clear. The updated will was invalid. The estate would be distributed according to the original, signed and witnessed will, naming me as the primary beneficiary. I won. The house, the savings, the business. Everything my father wanted for me was mine again. But it wasn't just about the inheritance. It was the restoration of my name, my place, my worth. And I saw it in their faces, especially Claire's, as the judge read the verdict. That flicker of disbelief, that sliver of fear, the one that says she wasn't supposed to win. After court, I didn't say a word to them. I walked past Claire, past Miranda, past the lawyer who tried to twist my grief into greed. But when I reached the courthouse steps, I turned back. Not for them. For me, I whispered, almost to myself, but loud enough for them to hear. You told me to let it go. You tried to erase me. But I let it burn. And you're the one standing in the ashes. Have you ever had to fight for what was already yours? Share your story in the comments. I want to hear it. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss another family betrayal story. Because sometimes the ones who try to bury us forget we're the fire.